Yes, really proud of the guys for their win over Wake Forest. Wake had won 4 games in a row, and it was the end of a brutal stretch with us for not only 7 straight games, but for 4 games with rivals, which is the first time it had ever happened in our school's history. And I thought the guys tried hard in each of those 4 games and only came up short at Virginia. So winning the 3 in-state games is important. It does help your fan base because they get bragging rights for a year. It does help recruiting, even though I don't think it changes recruiting because a lot of young people are making decisions early now. But it was important for us to have the comeback win at Wake for lots of reasons. But proud of the offense. They've been one of the best offenses all year in the country. Defense found a way to find 5 stops in a row in the second half, which credit a few things. I think last year we struggled with Wake's offense early in the game, the first half. Second half we played much better. Same thing in this one. Jay and the guys made some adjustments at halftime, but I also think with the uniqueness of the Wake Forest offense, the longer you see it, the more you settle down and stay in your gaps and play with a lot more patience. And I think that happened in the second half. But it was also really important for our guys to come back and win a close game at the end. We hadn't really done that since we've been here. And we missed a close comeback at Florida State that I thought we should have won. We didn't finish at Virginia. I thought we could have won. And then this one, we came back and won. So that should really, really help us moving forward. I think Jeremy announced it last week, but Kerryon Johnson and Sam Howell were our 2 offensive players of the week. We call him Q, but Q stepping in and as a walk-on, and Brian Anderson not playing was a huge help for us and really saved the game. So the coaches felt like he definitely deserved credit, and Sam's playing as well as any quarterback in the country. Chaz Surratt was the defensive player of the game, was all over the place, and Obi was our special teams player of the week. We've got huge, we would have had huge crowds this year. And there have been a lot of disappointments for a lot of us in our lives with the pandemic. But one for sure is we would have sold out for Syracuse. And then what a crowd we would have had for Virginia Tech and for NC State and for Wake Forest. And then this weekend, this Friday, would have been maybe the best crowd in our school history. So that's a shame that our fans haven't been able to enjoy the games in person, and our players, especially the seniors, haven't been able to enjoy the atmosphere in Kenan. But we understand. Then this weekend we've got Notre Dame, number 2 in the country, national game. We wanted to be relevant again. We're ranked, and Notre Dame's number 2 in the country, national TV game. We've got a great slot with Kirk Herbstreit, Chris Fowler, and Maria Taylor coming in. So it is a relevant game. And Brian Kelly and I coached in an all-star game in 2003 out in Hawaii when he was actually the head coach at Grand Valley State. He was the coach of the year. And we've been really good friends ever since. I'm so proud for him. This may be his best team because they're very balanced. They do everything pretty well. Just checking a few things for them as they're number 1 in the league in total defense. So at a year where we're saying a lot of people missed defense and we didn't have spring practice, so that hurt us, and the offenses are ahead of the defense. Well, Notre Dame didn't get that memo because they're giving up 85 yards rushing a game. So they're so good on defense. But interestingly enough, we're 7th in our league on defense, and we're 6th against the run in our league, and we can improve so much. But it just shows you that our league has struggled some on defense as we look at where we are. We're total offense. We're number 1 in the ACC, and Notre Dame's number 3. But more uniquely, both Notre Dame and us have rushed for 233.5 yards per game. I don't think I've ever seen a stat that's like that. But should be a fun game. Should be a great game. I know our guys are really looking forward to it. And Notre Dame is national. It gives us a chance to see where we fit. and to see if we can start being in some conversations with, we've got the national game with Notre Dame. We've got the more local in-state game with Western Carolina. Then we've got another national game with Miami. So we've got 2 of the next 3 weeks to kind of see where we are. One positive thing that happened yesterday is that Miles Murphy's cast was taken off. So he does have use of some hands now. So when you're saying, Miles, wrap up, and he's got a club, it's kind of hard for him to look at you and say, come on, man, I can't wrap up. I don't have a hand. So that should help. So in closing for me, last week, we're in the midst of finals. So we practiced Monday, we practiced Tuesday, we took off Wednesday for finals, we practiced Thursday, and then we took off Friday and Saturday for finals. We practiced yesterday afternoon. And then today, every player on our team, I think, has got finals. And then we'll go back and try to practice tomorrow. So this week will be a little bit more like the routine of the Duke week, where the NCAA took the practice day away on Tuesday. Well, with a Friday game, finals are taking this practice day away. So it'll be more like that routine that we normally would have had. And then Thursday will be our normal Friday before a ball game. So the guys will not have Thanksgiving. They'll just have a Friday night, Thursday night meal for a Friday game, which is normally like a Friday night meal. And then they'll be able to have their Thanksgiving on Saturday. Questions?
Thanks, Coach. If you have a question, please use the raise hand function. Today, we will begin with Greg Barnes. Go ahead, Greg.
Hey, Matt, good morning.
Morning.
You've talked a good bit about, the struggles of not having a spring practice and being limited somewhat in the summer. I know the original schedule had you penciled in for top 25 matchups against Central Florida and Auburn. The new schedule obviously kind of flipped that around to where you have these big games late in the year. Given everything that's transpired, is the schedule set up the way you wanted to be able to have this opportunity late?
Greg, I think it's better than it would have been early. Who knows? But I wish we had been able to play Charlotte. That would have really helped us for so many different reasons. And then we would have been on schedule. We would have already had 9 games played at a time where I think I saw 87 games have been canceled or postponed. So you hold your breath every time those tests come back, the virus test, to see whether your guys are going to be able to play or your coaches are going to be able to play or not. But I do feel like that the schedule has worked out probably about as well as we could. It's unique for us that we may be the only team that has a 3-game series with Notre Dame. We play them in Chapel Hill this year, we play them in South Bend next year, and then we actually play them in Chapel Hill the next year. So weirdly enough, Florida State was on our schedule once for 7 years, and now we play them 2 years in a row because we play them in Chapel Hill next year. And Notre Dame, we had a 2-game series with. It was added with the pandemic schedule. So scheduling's been a little bit crazy, but I do think it's worked out fine.
And last year, this team obviously played, a top team in Clemson, but that was really 5 games in and didn't really know what this team was about. Now we have an idea of what this team is and kind of what your culture is. How big of an opportunity is this? You talked about this being a chance to prove how relevant this team can be nationally, but how are you approaching kind of the importance of this game, not just in the ACC race, but in kind of where this team wants to get to?
Greg, I'm really approaching it just to look at it and see where we are nationally. We know where Notre Dame is. They're one of the best teams in the country. They're probably a playoff team right now. People would project they'll definitely be in the ACC championship game. They've dominated most of the teams they've played. So everybody knows where Notre Dame is. Nobody knows where we are. We're up and we're down, and can we run the ball against a team that's given up 85 yards? Can we be balanced? Can we move the ball against the number 5 defense in the country? Can we stop them at all? Because we've been so inconsistent on offense. And Ian Book's 28-3. He's thrown 11 touchdown passes, just 1 interception. He's run for 6 touchdowns, which we have not done very well against running quarterbacks when he has the ability to take it down and run. And defensively, they're really, really good. And I think they're giving up 25% on third down. So more than anything else, I've told the guys this is a great opportunity for us early in the transition to rebuilding our program to see where we are. But I've also told them, you want to be relevant, you want to be national, you are. So everybody in the country is going to watch you play on Saturday. So this is an opportunity for you to show them that we are making progress.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next question comes from CL Brown.
Hi, Mac. What advantages, if any, do you see from a week like this where, it's and the pandemic heading into it, there's not a lot of kids on campus who are telling players every class and every walk across campus how big the game is. And there's not going to be that kind of a build up to this game. It seems like it'll be more, your players will be able more just to kind of focus in on the actual game itself as opposed to the hoopla.
Yeah, CL, if we could get them off social media, that would really help. But they're not going to get off social media. So they're going to know how big the game is. They're going to be told all week how big the game is. And that's okay. That it is big. So they need to understand that. That's one thing that we put up with at Texas. Everybody wanted to beat Texas. Everybody wants to beat Notre Dame. It's funny, the Texas, when you'd play Texas Tech, they'd say, this is the game of the year. Texas player would say, nope, it's the next game for us. And for Notre Dame, everybody gets excited about playing Notre Dame. So that's one of the things that they have to do because they're an established national program and we're not there yet. That's where we want to be. I do feel like the other thing, though, that did help with the week off, and I'm sure Notre Dame feels the same way. We started practice August 6th, and this would have been the last game of the year for us. We would have played NC State on Friday if the pandemic had not come, and our season would have been over. And then you start looking at bowl games. And now we got 2 more weeks. So we started earlier, and we're finishing much later. So you've got to give these players all across the country and assistant coaches especially credit for not only handling the pandemic, being able to play these games, but the brutal schedule that they've had. And now with the excitement of the Notre Dame game, our guys have very difficult finals on Zoom. So, and then we'll have 2 weeks on campus, CL, without any students here. So the next 2 ball games, it'll just be us. Everybody else will be gone home. So it's really, really a different time for our players.
And with the announcement Jeremy made about McMichael being back and the possibility anyway of Storm at least returning to practice and being up for game time, how will that affect the secondary, especially given the end of Wake Forest? We saw you guys use the younger guys like Conley and Grimes in the rotation.
Right. We're just looking at all of this. One thing for me, being on your side of this for 5 years and being over here, in the media, I always wonder why don't they just tell us who's healthy? Man, don't say it's a game time decision. Don't say we're going to watch them during the week. It's really true. I mean, so number one, you watch a guy like Storm during the week, and then he hasn't played in so long. Will he be ready to play if he can practice all week? And how much can you use him? So all those things are a factor as you get in there. So Dre Bly and Jay Bateman for 2 years have had to shuffle guys in and out of the secondary, and they'll be trying to figure it out again this week because Notre Dame's got such big receivers. I mean, they're huge. They're all the size of tight ends, but they can run.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you, CL.
All right, let's go over to David Teal.
Mac, you mentioned earlier the hold your breath moments every week awaiting test results. I'm guessing that the biggest hold your breath moment is Saturday morning. Does the ACC need to change its testing timing so that the road team knows who has tested positive before getting on that airplane?
David, it's way beyond my knowledge or ability to speculate, because I think what they feel like is you have to have a test result that's within a certain amount of time from the game to make sure that everyone is safe to play in the game. And that's the reason they do it. It's even difficult. First time I realized we're playing at Boston College, and we didn't get our test scores till we got up there. And if someone had a positive, they would have had to get in a car service or somebody or one of our staff members who had a positive and drive them back home. They couldn't get on the plane to come home. So it is difficult. It's difficult to understand. You know, there's so many things in this pandemic that we still don't understand. How do you get a false positive? When you get a false positive, it's so unfair to go public and say somebody's got a positive, and then 2 days later, nope, it had 2 negatives, so it was a false positive. And now anybody that has an allergy or a sneeze or a bad cold, we don't let them practice. I mean, and then you have to run and test them again, and see does he have a headache, does he have a sore throat, or does he have the virus? So it's a very, very different time, and I think you go back and look at it at the first of the year. If we'd known then what we know now about a lot of things, would we have changed some things? Should teams have to forfeit that aren't able to play? There's just so many different things. If you don't play and you're missing a TV opportunity, that takes money out of the league for the athletics directors, and obviously they need the money. And we're getting to a point now where we can't make up some of these games. They're not going to be able to be postponed. They're going to have to be canceled. So I don't know. I've asked so many questions about the pandemic, and after you've got a positive, how many days is there where you don't have to test again? And sometimes they've told me if you got a positive the first time and you keep testing, you're going to have more positives. So if a guy doesn't have the virus again, but he had a positive early, and you're 150 days later and he has another positive, but it's from the first test. There are just so many questions, David. I don't know. And what I will say that Dr. Sioka, Mario Sioka, and Luke Ross, our trainer and our doctor, have done a phenomenal job with these kids. And every day I have somebody come to me and they tell me right before practice, hey, somebody's got a sore throat, so they're not out. They're not going to be there today. And I'll also say the coaches, I've just told them, I don't want to hear you griping. I don't want to hear that somebody's out. It's going to happen this year, worse than normal. So if somebody's not out there, figure it out and just play them. And because of that, Jay Bateman's he's played Don Chapman at corner some, along with safety. I look up and he's got Jaquarius Conley playing corner, just because we don't know who's going to be there. And so David, we'll get test scores back, or we'll get test results back tonight. I call them test scores. I guess that's what it is for me. Then we'll get them back after Wednesday's practice, and then we'll get them right probably Thursday night or Friday morning. If you're at home, sometimes we get ours Thursday night at like 10 o'clock. And the trainer just texts me and he says all negatives. And that's the happiest day of my week when we do that. And if there is I could get a text on Thursday night that says Jay Bateman is positive, and then he can't coach the next morning, and we've got to figure out what to do. And then at the same time, David, the next day after the game, they could retest him and say, no, it was a false positive. Sorry, we got a bad test result back. So it's just the inconsistency of routine is really been difficult for everybody.
And then more to the point, on Friday, I've seen comparisons between Isaiah Simmons and Kyle Hamilton. You competed against Simmons last season. Does Hamilton on tape remind you of him?
Yes, that he's really, really good. That's he can make plays all over the field. And that's when we saw Simmons last year, it was just a wow effect, because it didn't matter where he was, didn't matter if you ran to him or away from him, he was going to be around it and make plays. And same thing. I think they're very comparable.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next question comes from Brendan Marks.
Morning, Mac. Thanks for doing this. You had mentioned obviously Ian Book and sort of the spectacular season he's been having. Also, Notre Dame's overall defense, one of the best in the country. Right now, would you say that your greater concern with the Irish is on the offensive or the defensive side of the ball? Are you more worried about having to contain Ian or about trying to see if your offense can compete against that caliber of defense?
Yes. I'm concerned about both. Defensively, they're by far the best team we've played. Offensively, they can pound you up front. They can throw it. Ian can run with it. They're leading the league in time of possession. So not only do they pound you, and we have not been great against the run. So they're going to line up and just run it right at us, and it's a huge challenge for our guys. And again, in the 2 games that we've lost, we didn't run the ball very well. It's the only 2 games this year that we have not beat the other team in rushing yards. Only had 93 yards, 93, I think, against Virginia. So they're obviously going to look at those 2 games and try to make us throw it. And then you've got to run it well enough to protect, because you got Hamilton, you got Hayes, you got Jeremiah, number 6, who's a great linebacker that I can't pronounce his name yet. I just know he's really good. So, but they're very well coached. Their coach, Coach Clark, came from the Wake Forest staff, so I'm sure they visited a lot during the week and during the year with them. So it'll be a real challenge for us.
Thank you.
All right, let's go over to Andrew Jones, please.
Hey, Coach, you've said in the past, I guess last year, the week of the Clemson game, that you don't want your guys, you have to guard against them playing the game on Tuesday and Wednesday during the week. You have another one of those games this week. So how are you as a staff kind of working to guard against those guys being too amped up and kind of playing that game emotionally before the game even gets here?
Yeah, it's a great point, especially with 2 weeks to prepare. One of the things that you have to do to get better as a program is you have to practice hard every day. And we didn't do that last year. We had some real highs and real lows, and I could kind of tell that we were going to struggle in a ball game because we didn't have interest in practice. I will say right now, and part of it is because we're developing more depth, that we are practicing hard every day. So I didn't see any difference in yesterday than I did Tuesday before Wake Forest. So I do think part of it's depth. They want to play. Part of it's we're playing more people, so they're excited about the opportunity to get to play, and they need to prepare and practice better. But I'm not seeing the highs and lows that we had in our first year.
Do you think that with final exams occurring so early and being last week, and I guess some are still going on, that maybe kind of helps a little bit because they have a lot of their emphasis personally away from football? So Notre Dame's on their mind 24/7?
Yeah, I don't, because it's a grind for them with finals. So, I mean, these guys have to study. We've had guys that missed practice last week because they had to study for finals. So it's just another 2020 disruption that you look at as you look at all the things that they're dealing with that they wouldn't normally deal with. And then you look at just things that are out there for us. We've got this game, we've got Western Carolina next week, then we've got Miami. And that will be on the 12th of December. They will not announce the bowl games until the 20th. We won't have any school. You don't know which bowl games you're going to. So do you send the players home for 5 days during the pandemic? Do you keep them here with no school and practice them, not knowing who you're going to play against or when you're going to play, when they're exhausted because they started August 6th? Andrew, there's just so many different questions now than we don't normally deal with. So we're trying to figure all that out now.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Our next question comes from Ross Martin.
Hey, Mac, I was wondering if you saw what happened with Florida State and Clemson and the cancellation of that game, if you had any thoughts on that situation.
Ross, I saw it like everybody else, and it's David kind of alluded to it earlier. It's been a fear all year that you would get to a game. I was crushed when and the players on Thursday, when we were told we couldn't play Charlotte. So I can't imagine getting ready to go down for a pregame meal and being told we're not going to play when you're on the road and having to go home. So I don't know all the details. I'm not exactly sure what happened. I'm not sure anybody knows for sure in the conversations, but it's a scary one. And it shows, I told the players at yesterday's meeting, you are blessed if you play a game. So don't take any of them for granted. Let's hope we get to play Friday. We're planning on playing Friday, but don't sit there and say, we got Notre Dame this week. It's not guaranteed at all. So, and the virus is obviously amped up more and a bigger spike across the country than it's probably been, it sounds like. But I don't know, Ross. I think it's, again, as I talked to David about it, I bet if we knew back in the summer when we weren't even sure we were going to play, if we knew all this was going to happen and how it was going to happen, there probably would have been some different things put into place. But who knows? We didn't even know we were going to play. And who would have ever think that this would happen? So, it's just, it's very, very unfortunate for everybody involved and especially the kids.
Great, thank you. And quickly, looking at the Wake Forest tape, what's the one thing that kind of concerns you about y'all's defense? Reviewing that tape and heading into this week.
Well, Jay will be here in about 15 minutes, and if I address everything for he and Phil, then they'll be really disappointed that you don't get to ask them hard questions. So the biggest thing is, and I said it, I think right after the game, seems like 8 weeks ago we had that game. I didn't think that we were in the right gap some in the first half. They, with their slow pace with the running back with their RPOs, we were probably too excited in some ways, and we got out of our gaps. We lost contain, and they bounced back out to the backside twice and had big plays. And then we had a crack back with a corner on the front side once, and he got inside too far, and they bounced out for another big play. And in the second half, I thought we defended the run, and we were a lot more sound in our gap control and our leverage in the second half than we were the first half. When we started slowing the run down, it put them in second long and third and long situations, and that's not their deal. They're going to get that 4 to 6 yards on first down. They're going to make their third downs because they're third and short. But when we put them in third and long and fourth and long, we did much, much better the second half. Probably the only disappointing play that just really jumps out to me was the 3rd and 18. On the last drive, we can't do that. We're playing great for 5 straight series. It's 3rd down and 18 right after a sack, and we let them hit one for 46 yards and have some chance to get back in the game. So we've still got some things that we've got to do. And the other point that Jay will talk to you about is the communication. If you look at who we lost last year, we lost 5 good players on defense. And we didn't lose but 1 on offense. We lost Charlie Heck. But on defense, you lost Crawford. That's been hard to replace because he was such a big body inside. You lost Strobridge, who was a really good pass rusher and still playing with Miami. You lost Dominic Ross, who was a very good pass rusher and had some length. You lost Miles Dorn, who was the older safety in the middle that had played a lot. He's still playing. And then this year you lose Miles Wolford. So we've got a lot of people that are young in the secondary, especially at safety, and some of them have been hurt, and that's hurt our communication. So we've just had some people wide open, and people say, well, how can you do that, man? Well, they're not communicating well. So I would think be more fundamentally sound earlier in the game up front, tackle better, which is something you do every week, and communicate better in the back end.
All right. I appreciate your thoroughness, Mack.
Thanks. And then we'll let Jay won't have to come today.
All right, we'll close with Coach Brown with our last question from Aaron Beard.
Hey, Mack, I wanted to back up to something from the Wake Forest game. It's probably not ideal for you as you're going through the days after a game to hear a team suddenly having to not play because of a combination of positive tests and contact tracing, quarantines. I know some of it was injury related, but I'm curious kind of what was your thinking when you heard that? I don't know if you've had that happen before this year where somebody you played had a problem and couldn't play the next week that you had to sort of respond to, I guess.
Yeah. Aaron, are you available this week? Are you touch and go through the week? Do we have to watch you in game time decision? Or you look like you're moving around better. So,
Yeah, moving around.
all right, we have got it. It's another great question. And one of those things you haven't had before. After the game, when I heard that they had a positive on Monday, all we can do is check our test results, and they were all negative. So you would you say, just praise the Lord when it happens, because that's about all you can do. And I do think contact tracing has been one of the, maybe even a bigger issue than just the fact that you've got the virus. So we have gone over repeatedly for our players what that means. You have to keep your distance. You have to keep your mask on. And when the health department asks you if you're the roommate of a positive, or if you're in the same position room with a positive, they're going to ask you the questions of, have you been around him for more than 15 minutes? Have you had your mask off? Were you in the car without a mask? Do you eat next to him? Do you sit and watch TV in your house or your dorm room with a guy without a mask? And you have to be able to say no. Number one, you got to be honest, because you could be affecting your entire team. But number two, you've got to be in a position where if you want to play, you've got to say no. I had my mask on at all times, and so we've really worked hard at trying to make sure that the contact tracing isn't going to get somebody because somebody else had a positive. And it's still strange, but the contact tracing means you're out a minimum of 14 days. In the ACC, if you get the virus, you get 10 days, and then you have to go through the heart check procedures. But actually being a contact could take you more time to get back than having a positive, which is really, again, very different.